So I'm Chani, and I'm here to talk about activities. All right. So a lot of my work has been in Plasma. Is there anyone here who did not use KDE and Plasma and stuff?
Hang on.
Yeah? Oh, right, the microphone. It's got a blue light. That means it's on, right? Yeah, it's on. Okay. So, activities. How many people here don't use Plasma or know what activities are in Plasma? Okay, we have a few. Okay, let's just go through that quickly. Here is Plasma, which is a little bit unhappy about me changing screen resolution. And Plasma, we have widgets that we can play with, and we have panels with other widgets on them. I like auto-hide panels because I have lots of panels. And the activity right now is the desktop here with these widgets on it, and I have a lot of activities. 8 of them apparently. So this one has some notes on it. Half of them are for school. And what we have in 4.4 and previous is the ZUI, which has some performance issues and some other bugs at the moment. Yeah, bugs. Including a bug that's going to make it very hard for me to zoom back in. Oh, there we go. Okay. So those were all my activities zoomed out, and it was very horribly slow. But that's not really what I think of as activities anymore. So, what is an activity these days? The word has been used for a lot of different things. In KDE right now, an activity refers to basically the desktop group of widgets and your pretty wallpaper and all that stuff there. But that's going to change. So, an activity, it's not just a few widgets. It's not just an application. I mean, Ocular is an application that shows PDFs, and I have probably 4 different PDFs open at any given time, and they're for 3 different subjects. That's not an activity. An activity is what you're actually doing. So when I'm working on a math assignment, I have the math questions themselves in a PDF or a note or something like that, and I need a calculator, and I need somewhere to actually write down my answers, and all those tools and documents together. That is what my activity is. And it might be several different windows and several widgets. And right now, we don't really have anything tying those all together. We kind of have to, you manually open some things and you put them together maybe on a virtual desktop, or you put them somewhere else, and you have to remember where you put them. And there's no organization between them. So what I'm trying to create is a way to just organize my desktop better. So currently we have the widgets in Plasma. And what I want to add to that is also windows, to be able to associate a window with the activity. So certain things like calculator, I use SpeedCrunch a lot. Or I have where did I put it? See, this is like, virtual desktops. They're confusing and they're not good enough for me. But I have, somewhere around here, this lovely program called Anki that I use for flashcards. And I use it for German, and I use it for a couple of school courses as well. but I keep having to move it around to different virtual desktops because it can only be in one place at a time, but really it applies to three of these things. So I want this window to be associated with all the things that I actually use it for, but I don't want it around when I'm doing something completely different like Plasma. Another thing I want is for applications to be aware of this context. So in Plasma right now, you can always tell what the activity is, and Sebas was working on Lion Mail, a little mail application that would be able to show you mail, and you could configure it to be specific to that activity. And you could already have, you can put on the specific widgets that you need for whatever activity you're working on. But what if applications could do that as well? What if Kmail could only show me the folders related to my schoolwork when I'm doing school and not distract me with all this interesting KDE mailing lists that are very distracting? And what if, say, in the file dialogues, you could have, you already have the places on the side, and you can add more places there. You can add them that only show up in a certain application, but you can't say, only show these folders when I'm working on this project. You can't do that right now. What else? Another thing you have that's part of an activity is your documents. You want to be able to, you can already tag documents actually in Nipamuk, but it would be, I'm hoping in the future, someday, you'd be able to open up one of those documents, and then if it's associated with your activity, it automatically goes to that activity. Another thing you can't really do right now is to close something and open it again. If I have 3 different documents and a couple of web pages and a calculator or whatever open to work on some project, I can't take that group of windows and close them and put them away and restore them again later when I want to work on them again. Because, I mean, you saw I have 8 activities. It's probably draining my resources a bit to be running all of those at once. And I have, at the end of last semester, I had 3 other courses, and I didn't want to just outright delete the activities for those courses. I hate deleting things. But I actually had to go over the holidays, and I implemented this horrible quick hack that allows me to close activities. So this is not in trunk right now because, well, it's horrible quick hack, but it will be in trunk once I polish it up and create a proper UI for it. But I can now close all of these courses that I've been paying absolutely no attention to in the last 2 days and just get rid of them. And then when I want them back, just restore them again. And this way I don't have to have them actually running. So I could stash away almost all of these things. And then when I zoom out, you can see they're all gone. I'm only running this one. And what I'm hoping is that in the future, Windows will also be able to be saved and restored with this. So when I have Windows associated with the school project, I can close that activity. All the windows will go away, and then they'll come back up just the way they were. That's probably going to be the hardest part of this. Is we have right now very well session support in that you can log in and all the documents you had open when you logged out are still there. And this works. I've only seen a couple of exceptions to this, but for the most part it just works. But that protocol, it seems like it's not really going to be able to expand to this, so there's going to have to be a new protocol. And then I'm going to have to persuade application writers to actually implement it. Yeah, I'm hoping we can do it. I mean, we made that new system tray spec, and GNOME is implementing that now. So it is possible to write a new specification and have people use it. It's just going to be a challenge. Yeah, so all of these things that I want to see, it's going to take some time. So like Arthur said, we are going to be more focused on getting what we have to work well right now. But in the future, I'm hoping to actually make this happen. And there are a fair number of building blocks already there in place, so there are some things we can do. So in Nepomuk, for example, there's code in Playground already that might be heading to KDE review right now. That will allow you to query Nepomuk for what activity is running and synchronize between Nepomuk and Plasma the list of activities and the currently running one and switch around. And with that, then applications will be able to ask what the activity is and customize their content a little bit. And yeah. So there's also Quinn. There's going to have to be some work done in Quinn. So to be able to show only the windows that are associated with the activity. So all the other windows can be just put aside and not be a distraction. I'm not sure. I don't think that's going to be very hard, but just little things to do. And then in Plasma, we also need to have a UI for this. And this is something that is probably going to be worked on for 4.5 because this Edge UI is probably not going to be around by then. So we just need, I mean, my horrible, ugly thing over here is the very, very beginnings of that. But we should have something a lot prettier, hopefully at Tokamak. And then, I mean, the taskbar would need to be updated, all these little details, but there's not that much to do. The big thing is that session thing, being able to save out a group of windows and bring them back in and have everything just work smoothly. It'll be really interesting to figure out how to do that when a window is on 2 different activities. It's going to be hard. So I'm hoping sometime in the next year we're going to start seeing these things come together and work. And you know, it's open source. You can never really set a real timeline because you never know what the hell's going to happen. But we could have the basics of it in 4.5 and then start seeing some real useful things in 4.6, I hope. But right now we're about to release 4.4, so I'm talking about all these lovely shiny new things that I really want to work on, but that's not what we're going to be releasing in February. So I wanted to give just a few tips about the things you can use to make things a little easier in 4.4, because we had planned to actually remove this Edge UI for 4.4, but we didn't have time to do that. So we have the activity bar, and this is actually a fork of the activity bar right here. And I think a lot of people are using this already to switch between desktops because it's so easy. You just click on it. And there's also more things in the cashew. So you can actually add an activity from right here, or you can remove it from right here. I don't want to delete it though. And you can do pretty much everything you want. Ah, yes. Mouse plugins. This was my Summer of Code project. And so I can just click and switch. And that's in the settings here. See, there's just this switch activity plugin that'll give you a list, kind of like the bar here. Just very simple things that make life slightly easier. Where did my window go? Oh, there it is. So you can actually configure the right-click menu a lot more now as well. So you can, if the zooming interface works well on your system, then you can just add them right here, and then you just right-click and use them, and it's a lot easier that way. So, any questions?
How does this activity relate to multiple desktops?
Someone had to ask that. That's something I have been thinking about a lot the last few days. Oh, okay, I've been thinking about it for months, but I've been obsessing about it the last few days. That's a hard problem. I have a couple of different possible approaches. So possibly this could be orthogonal to the virtual desktops. Possibly this could try to merge with them, but there are some issues with things like compositing that might make it really hard. I'm not entirely sure how some of that would actually work. So it's something to be investigated.
Right now, I kind of use it like, I have an activity like for giving trainings that has like the timer widget on the desktop. Then I have another one, and it has a folder view with just the training related folders. And like I have another one for work, there's all my work related stuff, and another one for personal, it has like my Facebook Plasma app on there.
So it is orthogonal. I think what's confusing is
it's like multiple desktops for plasmoids.
Right, exactly. So you could have multiple activities on multiple, like one desktop with 4 activities, another desktop.
I think it would be more like an activity with several desktops.
Yeah.
So you can switch activity. So you have a certain number of virtual desktops, and then you would be able to switch activities. And each activity you'd have like a bit more space.
All of the desktops change to that.
Yeah, because personally, I tend to have 2 virtual desktops per subject when I can. I have like one for my documentation and one for my work. And so I would probably want 2 virtual desktops and then a whole bunch of activities.
You said that there's a problem with compositing with linking activities and virtual desktops, but we have that setting in the Plasma settings moment to say 1 activity per virtual desktop.
We do have that for the Plasma desktops, yes, but we've already seen problems where the panel, oops. Like we had lots and lots of bug reports because if you have compositing and you do like the desktop grid or the desktop cube or whatever and the panel is there, the toolbar will show all the windows for the virtual desktop you're currently on. And that's basically the gist of the problem of compositing. It will show what a window is showing right now. So if we start getting other applications like Kmail basing their content on what your activity is, then what they show won't line up with the activity that Composite is trying to show. And we've already seen people get very upset about that. And it's just one of those visual things.
Right now, the only feasible way should be to have like 4 panels with each one identical to the other one, besides the taskbar and this kind of icon. We don't have, frankly, I think, any other way to do that.
But so basically, besides this, if you take away the taskbar with the list of windows, there is nothing. So there is the support for 1 activity per desktop, and that's working.
Yeah, in Plasma, but what about when Kmail starts basing its display on activities? What if Dolphin has stuff for that? What if some other application? The more you get, the more you'll have these little inconsistencies, and I don't like it.
At least, yeah, on the Windows side, what's good is for us that just provides us with something that looks like multiple desktops for Windows, except it doesn't manage the Windows itself. Yes.
When you said there was some shortcoming with the X session protocol, why couldn't you use the accession protocol to define multiple sessions for an activities apps, and then instead of saving and restoring the sessions at the logout and login, you allow a manual save and restore or an automatic save and restore when you change activities?
I believe that it's based on the entire application instead of the window. I was talking with Lubosh about it, and his opinion was that it would probably be easier to write a new thing. So I'm going to talk with him about this at Tokamak and figure out what this session stuff is going to have to actually look like.
You'd be changing an application session without actually ending the application, and that's what applications aren't written for at the moment.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, Conqueror, you sometimes have one process with like 5 different windows, and each window has a half dozen tabs, and you might only want to close one of those windows.
Partial session.
Yeah. So it should be doable. It's just have to actually go in and do the work and research it a bit more. Well, yeah.
Okay, it's a two-part question. First one, who is the target user? Because usually the common user, desktop users, don't understand anything about virtual desktops. This has become more complicated than virtual desktops itself. And the second part is, if the standard user is the target, how would make it likable for people who use it at all?
Well, this is more for people who actually are working on more than one thing at a time. Like, I don't think my mother would probably use this because she has a couple of websites she visits and doesn't actually need her computer for much more than that. So she would probably only have the one activity and not actually use these features. But other people who have like, especially students, have like a whole bunch of different courses, and they'd probably benefit from being able to organize things better.
I think a lot of people really underestimate how a lot of people in companies, doing administrative stuff, work with computers basically all day. I mean, the complicated stuff that, for example, some secretaries do with like Word macros that I would be able to begin to comprehend. Those people are actually very advanced computer users, although they consider themselves like, oh, computers, I don't know anything about it. You're right. I mean, those people, I think, the stuff they're doing sometimes, I'm amazed by what I see them do, in Windows XP, which is, a pretty limiting environment. I think if you give them this power, I think they'll use it a lot and will. And, they'll tell each other about it. And I think a lot of people underestimate how good some people are, how good quite a few people are with computers.
And of course,
those people underestimate themselves as well.
And of course, I want to try and make this as simple and intuitive to use as possible, which is where I was thinking about the possibility of maybe merging it with virtual desktops, if we can figure out a way to do that nicely.
I think that the user interface is key for this. I mean, it's quite powerful, but just a very understandable user interface.
Yeah, it's very important to get a good.
At the moment, with the zoomable user interface and the activities in the virtual desktops, this is really good.
Yeah, and this actually grew out of trying to fix that ZUI thing.
Make it really discoverable without going to a talk and asking you questions how to configure it.
Is there a case for having a default configuration? So, for example, look at Moblin. It already comes with 6 or 7 activities predefined for contacts and music and photos and connectivity.
Those aren't really activities. I'm not sure.
Like big panels, big pop-ups that comes out from.
But effectively, since it's a transition, effectively you are changing activity then. And that's there. And it means that every Moblin user, when they first get one, gets this idea of this activity that changes your task.
Something to think about.
I agree with that. I think one thing that would help would maybe be activities that are pre-configured by the distribution or however that are set up as templates for activities. Because when I look at it, the simplest use case would be you have a work activity set, you have a play activity set, or social media or whatever it is that but they're all
Yeah.
separate activities.
I've been starting to think I might want some kind of template-y thing as well, because a lot of my school activities are set up very similarly, and it's getting a little tedious to, I only have to do it every 4 months, but
It's easier for somebody maybe to comprehend going in and modifying an existing activity than it is, because I think as other people mentioned, what trips you new users up is the concept of zooming out and setting these up to begin with, and then they don't know that there's an activity switcher that necessarily a widget that they can add or panel that they can add. Once that's all set up, it's obvious and easy, but it's just getting that far.
so
I
that's,
think it's another thing where new stuff would be useful.
yeah,
Yeah, like
how so?
like we get a new stuff, downloading predefined activities.
Ah, interesting. Celeste, you had something?
I think we should, at least with Moblin, the use of activities is a little bit different because it's making up for missing screen real estate. And the same would be the case in netbooks or anything else. Where on the desktop, I don't think it would be used in the same utility as, you know, a 17-inch monitor or something that's high res.
No.
Because you have the screen real estate, and people already organize stuff on a single plane. So.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking more about laptops than about smaller netbooks and things, because, I mean, I don't have a huge screen where I can lay out everything, and I have way too much stuff to lay out like that anyways. But, I mean, I have enough screen space that I'm not always maximizing my windows, but I still only really want to see one project at a time, or else I get distracted and go back and forth and end up reading webcomics instead of doing my homework. So this is kind of intended as partially organization and also filtering out the irrelevant stuff or the distracting stuff.
Just coming back to what you said about templates for activities, I think that could be generalized for Plasma as having a way to save Plasma applet configurations.
Yeah.
Because if I have an RSS reader, which is an RSS reader for work, and another RSS reader for play,
Yeah.
and sometimes I might want to save that configuration, reload it, but instead every time I add a new widget, I have to manually configure that widget
Yeah.
from scratch.
I mentioned this briefly on my blog at one point. It would be really nice if there was some kind of like widget. I describe it as a widget bank on my blog, where you could just kind of dump some widgets and it would save a copy of them, and then you could clone them out of there. We should talk about this at Tokamak, about a good UI for being able to do that.
Not DOS, OS2, sorry, where you had a kind of a new document where you would say, you click on, you drag on an icon, say, which is a blank sheet of paper, and that would open up your word processor. So you have this kind of stack of widgets that you could pull things on and off to create these configurations. Express them very nicely.
Yeah. It's cool. You can have a document, a letter, for example, and just click on it and say, well, this is a template now. And then you can just create new documents by dragging it around, and then you have copies of it.
Could be something accessible in the Widget Explorer, probably. Like
Perhaps. I have a couple of thoughts on that. All right. Anything else? Then it's dinner time. Oh, sorry, did you?
No, it's okay.